Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Takatoshi Shibayama, the host of the Future Design Podcast. As many of you are aware, the crypto market has raged back since 2020 from the darkness after the crash at the end of 2017. I've picked up crypto for payments and DeFi, decentralized finance, last year, but I wanted to sum up what is really going on and what's being discussed these days. Obviously, DeFi is still the attention of many crypto investors and also being discussed among the institutional investor community. I thought it would be a good time to recap, and also for crypto newbies to get some idea about this phenomenon. I'm thinking of doing this kind of crypto summary once in a while, so that I can speak about it more in depth, as most of the time I've kept it light. If you're interested, let me know what you want me to talk about so that I find an appropriate guest to discuss the topic. Today I have Naomi Oba, the marketing director of Bitcoin.com exchange. We talk about all things crypto, from payments, investable products, and DeFi, but one thing we didn't get into was the non-fungible tokens, aka NFTs or Nifties, which is the talk of the street these days. It's a great concept for artists, so I'm going to pick this up next time. So without further ado, this is Naomi Oba.
Future Design Podcast.
All right. Thank you very much for being on the show, Naomi Oba. What's going on?
Not much, just hanging out at home as all of us these days. And yeah, excited to be here.
Great. Thank you very much for being on the show. So usually I love to talk about many things around technology and ethics and spirituality. But for this topic, we're going to be talking about crypto and all things crypto. So, you're the perfect person for that. You're the marketing director of Bitcoin.com exchange. So before we dive into the esoteric world of crypto, could you tell us who is Naomi Oba?
Yeah, well, actually, maybe the name will already give you a hint, but I'm actually half Japanese, and that's been a big part of my identity. And I also lived in Tokyo for a long time, and I think it was the reason I studied linguistics as well, and why I'm doing a lot of writing. So I would say I'm a very creative person that is also very supportive and aware of the community I'm in. So I'm also doing a lot of charity work at the moment, and I'm also passionate about financial literacy and inclusion because I often notice that people don't know as much as they probably should. Yeah, so I kind of hope to bring that into the crypto world as well. And because I think when people get into crypto, they should really know finance first, at least a bit, so that they don't get burned too badly.
And you studied linguistics, so I guess finance is a different world for you. How did you get really excited about finance? And probably we'll get into why you got into crypto as well.
Yeah, actually, I never thought I would get into crypto. So when I graduated, I went to Japan for an internship, and that was in HR, and it was a big corporation. So it was Mitsubishi Fuso, and they manufacture trucks. So I was there for half a year, and I realized I don't fit into the corporate world, and I also realized that I don't want to work in HR. So that's when I started to think, okay, what can I actually do? And I did a lot of trial error, and I was looking for a job in Japan. And my Japanese wasn't perfect on a business level, so that was one major challenge for myself because usually if you want to have a corporate job, let's say in Japan, you obviously need to have perfect Japanese, and I didn't. So I was just looking around for jobs, and actually then I did have several interviews, and I had 2 interviews on one day. And one of the interviews was to be a preschool after-school teacher, and I got offered the job on the spot. And the other interview was with a blockchain consulting company, and I had no clue of blockchain whatsoever, but I did get offered the job as well. So I did some thinking for my own career, what I want to do, because I felt like if I make this decision, it's probably going to change my whole career path. If I go into the preschool direction, probably not get out of it as easily. And it would have been more difficult to continue doing education work if I were to go back to Europe because of all the certifications and all those differences. So I did decide to take the risk and go into something I had no clue about, and took the job in a blockchain consulting company. And that was really how I got into crypto. It was more a coincidence than, yeah, planned. Um, but yeah, and that was also when I started to get more passionate about finance because I realized I haven't been taught a lot in my life throughout my academic career, let's say. And I noticed when talking to other people that they were feeling the same way. Yeah, I don't know. I think we don't teach them much in school. Like you learn how to make like 2% and 3% and exponential growth and all these things, but you never apply them really to situations that could be useful. So yeah.
Hmm. Usually, when you have in this industry, everybody talks about is what is your life before crypto or blockchain. But it seems like you dove
Yeah.
into the world of blockchain before you had a job before that. So it kind of shows
Definitely.
how I guess there's been a lot of progress and time in this industry.
Yeah, definitely. And I actually joined after the big, let's say, ICO boom was over. So I joined in 2018. So I think I've seen a different side of crypto than people that have been into it for now 10 years, let's say. I think I joined at a different stage in the maturity cycle. So I might have a bit of a different view than people that have been around for 10 years and that have been through like a whole ICO boom and then bust and the ups and downs. Um, yeah.
Definitely, after the ICO boom, I figured that most scammers and kind of sketchy people in the industry kind of disappeared, and people who really believed in the world of crypto remained. And I guess these days, when you see a lot more new projects coming up and this market's becoming a lot more lucrative than before in the past 2 years, those kind of similar type of people start springing up again. But overall, I find that there's been a lot more maturity in the industry, and we're definitely 3 years older than that. So I think that crypto has definitely turned a new leaf, so to say.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, I did have a short time span in which I wasn't in crypto in the last 3 years. So I was working for a sales as a service company for a few months, like 8 months or something. So that was a job outside of crypto, but somehow I got sucked back into it. So yeah. Yeah, I think it was also because I'm more attracted to it's a very agile and a lot of things happen every day. So if you compare that with I was in a telecommunications company where things take ages to happen, then obviously there's a bit of a difference in terms of attention span. Yeah. No, my first job was at a Japanese blockchain consulting company called Base. I'm not sure if they're still around, but yeah, I'm definitely always going to be grateful to them for giving me the opportunity to do something I had not much idea about in the first place. Um, yeah, but I was starting to learn about it like crazy. So yeah.
I do get a lot of questions from people who are outside of the crypto industry. They're interested, they want to learn about it, potentially even getting a job in the industry. I mean, how did you go through your crypto blockchain education?
Oh, that was really totally, I was just going down the internet rabbit hole of Googling, like, what is blockchain? And then you find, I think now it's a lot easier to find these resources than it was 3 years ago because I still had to pick together articles from different places. And now you can probably just go to something like CoinDesk, which has a really good blockchain 101 or other sources where you can just go through. There are several online courses as well, um, even from companies like IBM. I think they have a blockchain course, and there's blockchain for dummies, there's Bitcoin for dummies. There's a lot of material out there. But I think what really helped me was actually meeting people and talking with them about it, because only then you will see if you actually understand or not. Um, and yeah, sometimes it helps if somebody else explains it to you in a different way than what you've read in a book previously. So,
Yeah. Well, in the world of crypto, they always say a couple of months is almost like 10 years in other industries. So if you're sticking around for like several years, the whole industry changes so much. I got into reading about crypto in depth in 2016, and right now it just looks nothing like it was in 2016. It's a whole different world. And even how people look at Bitcoin is massively different from where it was. I mean, and I went through the whole kind of education or self-education myself too. I mean, obviously there was, plenty of information out there on the internet. I mean, just look through anything that I can find to learn more about it. I read books. One book that I always recommend people is Blockchain Revolution by Don Tapscott, which gave me a lot of,
I read that as well.
give me a lot of imaginations on how you can use blockchain in different worlds. Obviously, the enterprise solution for blockchain has still been quite narrow, but it gives you a lot more ideas, creative ideas, and thinking about how blockchain could be applied in different parts of industries, which I thought was really educational for me at that time.
Yeah, definitely. I think also sometimes for people outside, it's hard to grasp the idea of blockchain versus Bitcoin. Yeah, sometimes just explaining that Bitcoin is not always is not just blockchain. Blockchain is just the technology it uses. I think that's sometimes a bit difficult. Yeah, because people just use it interchangeably as well in communication. So
Yeah, basically, just for the audience, the blockchain is used as like a underlying technology for Bitcoin, but the Bitcoin has now become, there's many versions of cryptocurrencies now that also uses blockchain as a technology, but blockchain itself can be used for many different industry use cases, such as supply chain management or even trades and settlements for the financial industries, which I think are two strong use cases. And on top of that, right now we're talking about vaccine records being on blockchain as well. I think medical records on blockchain will be really interesting if that comes out as well. I mean, I think imagination, you could use your imagination for a lot of things and apply that. But I think the strong uses cases are just kind of those things at the moment.
yeah, definitely agree. I think a lot of the keeping data safe and accessible, that's when you could rely on blockchain.
Right. And so then if I remember correctly, then you moved on to Bitcoin.com, which is a pretty prominent industry leader in the space, with a very prominent and sometimes controversial leader as well. Can you tell me how you got into that?
Well, actually, at that point, I was thinking about leaving Japan. So I was actually looking for a job back in Europe because I was thinking I would like to go back to Europe. And thanks to my time in crypto and active networking, I knew quite a lot of people. So I started asking them first. And an advisor that was working on the Bitcoin.com exchange, he introduced me to the CEO, and that's really how I got, yeah, to work there. So sometimes really relationship is all you need. Of course, I still had to send my resume and go through an interview process, but it definitely helped knowing somebody that was an advisor on the exchange project itself, because you had some insights into what kind of work you would be doing and what kind of team you would be working with, rather than coming from a completely not knowing anything. And yeah, that's how I got into it. So yeah, I mean, Bitcoin.com is basically kind of like a group company, and we are just the exchange service part of it, because Bitcoin.com is probably most known for their wallet app, just like, yeah. Um, and we are the exchange where people can then sell and buy other cryptocurrencies if they're not satisfied with just keeping it in their wallet.
Yeah. So one of the use cases for cryptocurrency initially was for digital payments, and the reason why Satoshi Nakamoto came up with a white paper saying that Bitcoin can be used for e-payments was the original use case for Bitcoin, and now it has become a totally different animal. People look at it as digital gold, inflation hedge, etc. And even now, corporations are buying that because they believe that the dollar is, inflating in value, and there's something that they need to hold on to that doesn't inflate away the value of the cash reserves that they have. And now it just become something so much bigger than what it was before. But to me, like, I think Bitcoin.com is always on the true path of what Satoshi wanted to do, and I find that to be very, very, I don't know, very principled in that idea, which I think is very different from a lot of the blockchain companies that are out there. I mean, I was wondering, what kind of thoughts you have around that.
Yeah, I think personally, I'm a bit conflicted with the fact that more and more institutions get into crypto because it was initially thought of as like a financial system that is not infiltrated by all these intermediaries. And now suddenly you have like JP Morgan saying, yeah, people could allocate 1% of their portfolio into Bitcoin, or Morgan Stanley offering their wealthy clients Bitcoin services. So I think it's a bit contradictory to what they originally tried to do in terms of offering like a totally, completely separate financial system for people that maybe didn't want to use the institutions we currently have, or maybe couldn't. Because I think even though we have this super complex system, there's still a lot of people in the world that don't have access to it and that are totally excluded. And a lot of times people think that it's just in developing countries, but even here in the UK, you have people that are unbanked. You have people that can't access credit, that can't start a business if they wanted to. So, yeah. So kind of for me, it felt like crypto initially was more of an idea to help those people and to be an alternative, and now it's kind of mixing. So I'm not yet sure what I make of it. I mean, for one, it's good because I think it's getting more regulated and there will be more consumer protection. But on the other hand, it kind of loses its initial spirit. So yeah, not really sure what to make of it.
Yeah, I mean, initially it wasn't really created to speculate on crypto exchanges, and all these derivatives are being popping up, and it's a very different animal than it was from before, but I still think cryptocurrency also can still be used for payments as well. Maybe not in the form of Bitcoin, but it can use. A lot of people might use it as a stable coin, which is kind of one-to-one to the fiat currencies, the government currencies that are usually pegged to like the US dollars or British pounds or euros. Those I think can be very used because the settlements are very quick, and I think there's a huge use case for that. In terms of like using cryptocurrencies other than stable coins, I think it's it still needs to be judged, right? I mean, you still need a little bit more stability in the prices, not to be speculated so much that the value of that swings 20% up and 30% down, and et cetera, like that.
Yeah. Even though that might be actually what attracts a lot of these financial players, is because they see they can make money. Um, I mean, it's not the most rosy view I have on finance sometimes, but I think when financial institutions come in, it is because they see an opportunity to make money. Um, so yeah, there's definitely that. But I do think that the volatility in Bitcoin has decreased over time. It's not crashing 50% of its price anymore in one day. I think last time around we saw a 10% correction, which is a lot less than what some people are used to see. So yeah, I think, and of course, with more and more interest, it might stabilize more, so making it more attractive.
Yeah, I think the creation of a lot of derivatives definitely created a lot more stability in that. I remember in towards the end of 2017, the CME, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, and CBOE also has started Bitcoin futures, and that could have been the reason why the market crashed so much, because before that nobody was able to take a short position in Bitcoin, but now you had these instruments where you can take a short position, which created a huge downward market since then. But after that, I mean, and you could tell us a lot more around this, but there's been very, very interesting derivative products that have been created using cryptocurrencies. Sometimes you don't even need to hold the underlying cryptocurrency, and you could still trade that is reflective of the underlying value. So now, what can you elaborate a little bit more on like what kind of derivatives that you see in the market?
I mean, personally, I'm most aware of all these like ETFs that have been launched with either, I think Grayscale's Bitcoin ETF is probably one of the most famous examples. And I think it's definitely attractive to institutions because they usually have a lot of compliance and they have a lot of regulations to comply with. So it might not be feasible for them to buy Bitcoin directly because even if they did, how are they going to store it? For example, I mean, a traditional financial institution doesn't necessarily have the infrastructure to keep digital assets safe, and they will probably not just use a ledger and leave it in somebody's desk. Um, so I think definitely having ETFs, if it's your only Bitcoin ETF or maybe a basket of currencies around Ethereum tokens, either one allows them to benefit from the upside of crypto without having the risk of, well, basically losing it or having it stolen or even just taking custody of it yourself. So I think that definitely makes it more attractive and it also allows them to trade on the venues that they've used for decades, which obviously has this huge trust relationship. I don't know how willing they would be to sign up to a cryptocurrency exchange to trade an asset. Probably they have been around for decades. They will have their own ways and probably also approval processes. So having an ETF traded on a major exchange makes it a lot more accessible for all these institutions.
Mm. And definitely there's a compliant element as well. A lot of the investors are concerned about AML, KYC, so they don't want to touch crypto that possibly have traded hands illegally. And there's a lot of instruments that are created, these ETFs that are listed on proper exchanges are Bitcoins that have been kind of checked whether it has been gone through proper channels, and then the investors don't actually have to touch the actual underlying Bitcoin. So I think that's a very strong use case, and also in terms of settlement as well, and getting access to that. I mean, a lot of investors are not comfortable about pre-funding exchanges. So sending Bitcoin or sending money into exchanges that are potentially are have the risk of like them shutting down and running away with your money, which we've seen time and time again, is a huge no-no for investors, right? And I think that having these products that are being listed on a proper exchange that they're used to traditionally, it makes sense for them.
Yeah, even though I think even with crypto exchanges, we are seeing more and more AML and KYC implemented. So a lot of exchanges do now require verification if you want to withdraw more than a certain amount, for example. And they also have AML in place. And then in some countries, you even need to have a license. I think Japan is one example where you need to have a license to operate your cryptocurrency exchange, which makes the hurdle a lot higher, but also, of course, is good for consumers because they know these companies are at least to a certain degree regulated and being watched over by a financial authority. So even in case they wanted to take the money and run, they wouldn't be able to do so easily. So I think there's definitely that trend that we see more and more governments regulating cryptocurrencies and the businesses that offer them. Yeah, so I think that might also create more peace of mind.
I guess that's where the conundrum comes for you, is that these cryptocurrencies were created to not really be in sync with the governments, the regulatory bodies, and it's supposed to be money that's away from government intervention. So how do you think that how do you think cryptocurrency in its original form can keep its kind of true form?
I think that's what we are seeing in the decentralized finance space. Um, yeah, I think there's like two direction it goes. Like cryptocurrency and centralized exchanges are moving more towards more regulation and more, yeah, being more open to, let's say, average Joe retail investors. And then I think we have the more tech savvy and more maybe privacy aware people as well. I think that is also one thing that people don't want to have all their financial transactions recorded by, um, yeah, any authority. And that doesn't necessarily mean they're doing criminal things. It just means they don't want that everybody knows what you've been buying in the past. Because of course it also has an effect on your credit ratings and all these things. So there is definitely a valid case for financial privacy. So I think that's what we see in decentralized finance, that these are all running on, like, decentralized finance is basically just proposing a alternative financial system running on blockchain technology, and everything there is decentralized. So it's more of a democratic approach, I guess, to having, for example, an exchange where our exchange is a centralized exchange, meaning that we, in the end, control the tech stack and what is going to be listed and how we manage verification. And on decentralized exchanges, it's basically just code. Um, so you're basically code is law in that regard. And most of them have tokens that allow people to vote and be part of what the protocol is going to do in the future. So I think that's more of the idea of giving everybody access and letting people decide what is going to happen with the protocol they're using. So that's where I see the original mission of, yeah, alternative financial system preserved in the decentralized finance space. And we've seen a lot coming there. It's really been booming. And I think, for example, MakerDAO and their stablecoin DAI has really, I think over the last few years, they have grown tremendously. And I think it's quite impressive that a stablecoin that isn't directly backed by the dollar can still maintain its value of more or less around $1. That's what I'm still pretty impressed by. Because, yeah, even just reading the white paper, I had to read it 10 times or something to understand half of it. Um, so, yeah, I think that's really where I see this idea keep keeping alive, surviving.
Yeah, and this decentralized finance is something that really picked up into 2020, especially towards mid 2020, I guess. We've seen a lot of projects. So you mentioned about decentralized exchanges. So when you think about exchanges, there are market makers in the traditional finance. So it could be a Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley trading different securities on those exchanges. Whereas in a decentralized exchange, when it first came out, there were no market makers. So it was almost like a bulletin board almost, where people put in orders and then wait for somebody to trade. So,
Want to sell 5 Ether, looking for buyer. Yeah, that's how it was, and that's why it was also not the most user-friendly experience, that we have to add as well, because usually you had to connect your Ethereum wallet. Yeah, but I think now they do have market makers. Those are not central authorities, obviously, but there's a lot of more liquidity providers. Um, and there has been this huge trend of yield farming recently, which is just a other term for liquidity mining, which I think is closer to what it actually does. So it basically allows investors to lock up crypto assets that they are not intending to use at that point. And these funds will then be pooled and be provided to exchanges so they can execute their trades. And for investors, as basically a reward for doing that and locking up their tokens, they can earn some crypto. And that's really providing more liquidity, I think, also in decentralized exchanges. And we also have aggregators of all these liquidity pools, so then you have even more liquidity. So I think really, decentralized exchanges and DeFi are working on solving the liquidity issue that has existed. I think now it's also fairly easy to trade on these decentralized exchanges. Once you've done it once or twice, you'll probably be able to use it on another platform as well.
Mm. Yeah, there's been a lot of these decentralized exchanges providing liquidity pools. So just for the audience to understand is that, as Naomi said, you can actually solicit many different retail or even institutional investors that hold cryptocurrencies that are idle, and you can provide that tokens into this liquidity pool so that people who trade on these decentralized exchanges can take liquidity from that pool and exchange their tokens. So I think it's a brilliant way, somebody who came up with it, that solved the issue of illiquidity in these decentralized exchanges, and now it's become a huge use case for idle crypto, for people to actually earn returns on providing crypto into these liquidity pools. And I think that this type of lending your idle crypto has becoming a massive business everywhere. There's a lot of companies coming up providing lending and borrowing and etc., so that people who have crypto tokens, they can actually earn some kind of yield on it, which is completely different from the real world, especially if you're living in a developed country where you get close to nothing on your bank interest, whereas opposed to you can change your cryptocurrency, let's say, into US dollar stable coins and earn somewhere between 6 to 15% yield on it, which is amazing because you're actually holding the same US dollar, but you're actually earning, you're comparing with 0 to 6 to 15%, which is completely unheard of.
Yeah, I mean, even if you use like a traditional lending club, which has also really taken off, I think, in the late uh, 2000s, like lending club, even then you would still earn less on your money. And now I think what's also very attractive about some of these lending protocols is that you can do it, for example, from your ledger. Um, for people who might not know, Ledger is basically a hardware wallet, means it's not necessarily connected to the internet, and therefore it's a very safe way to store your coins. And even the Ledger has an app that allows you to, yeah, put your coins into one of those lending protocols, which means you could really, in a safe way, earn interest on your cryptocurrency.
Yeah, it's a product that came out of this whole economic mess that we're actually in, and I guess there's no way out of it, in my view, other than some kind of civil revolution of some sort, because the world right now is kind of really divided in terms of the wealthy people and then the rest of the people, and the people who have power are on the side of the wealthy, and they have no desire to really change this and no really incentive, and plus moreover that they don't even know how to get out of this. So I think that's kind of where we stand.
Yeah.
And the only way, and it's also a sad thing, is that because we can't earn any bank interest, we can't buy government bonds to have some kind of yield, so we have to speculate our money, put it into stock markets, put it into crypto markets, so that you can earn something out of your assets. This is something that I think we never been ever in history of, well, at least financial history that we know, and we're really into this kind of uncharted territory, so to say, and figuring out how you can actually store wealth, create wealth, and it's just pushing people more and more into these speculative asset classes.
Yeah, and I think it also, well, accelerated maybe because everybody was stuck at home for a year. I think maybe without having been at home for 1 year, we would not have seen GameStop happen. That's one of my theories because people got together on Reddit and they didn't have anything else to do anyway. So yeah, they figured, well, why not try to not short this stock, but yeah, buy this shorted stock and see what happens. And it's also because obviously yeah, you don't know how you can store your money in a way that it retains your value because on the bank it won't happen. So yeah, of course, it's more attractive to then invest in stocks and see what happens, even though sometimes that can add pretty badly as well. So there's no guarantees that it will always work. The same with Bitcoin. You don't know if you're going to make more money in the end, but yeah, a lot more big institutions are betting on it. So I think that speaks for it. as well.
But it's interesting how not just the retail investors punting their money into these speculative asset classes, but now corporations, as I alluded to before, have started allocating some portion of their cash reserves into cryptocurrency, especially Bitcoin. And this is the phenomenon that we might potentially see across the board. We see a lot of U.S. companies. Some are very vocal about it, some are very hush hush about it, and I probably will assume that there are going to be more companies doing these things because, yeah, they're earning nothing on their cash reserves and they have to do something with it. Are they going to reinvest in their business? Are they going to buy back their own shares? Or you could just put it into cryptocurrency and make some money off of it. I mean, I think they have now have another alternative to do, something with their idle cash reserves.
Yeah, that's true. Even though, of course, challenges remain, I would say, when corporations do that, as we previously said, with maybe compliance and custody and also accounting, I think. Because how do you account for Bitcoin in your balance sheet? Is it at the cost when you bought it, or is it at fair value? So you have to evaluate every day. So yeah, I think that's also one of the challenges remaining. But yeah, I definitely think I think I saw an article 2 days ago. Bank of America is always surveying investment managers about what they think the biggest fear is or their biggest threat. And I think 93% did say that they think inflation is the biggest risk for this year, for the coming time. So it definitely makes sense if you look at the fundamentals of Bitcoin, the scarcity element, and the comparison to digital gold that, yeah, companies that are very much forward thinking and less conservative would invest in it, even if they will reevaluate their investment every once in a while to make sure it still fits their goals. But yeah.
Well, I think in terms of inflation, the CPI, which the government usually officially provides, the components of those CPIs can be manipulated by the government as well. And there's a huge incentive for governments to reduce the amount of inflation that they see by reshuffling what's in there. And if they actually do see inflation, that they can hit their government bond yields, which then turns into a huge interest payments that they have to pay annually for that government debt that they stacked up. So, it is in their best interest to keep that CPI low as possible. And there are people who say that if you actually put in the right components in there, and I don't know what the real right components are, but if you, let's say, put in like education. Yeah, I mean, look, maybe basic daily foods haven't gone up that much, maybe it has even gone down for efficiency. But if you look at, different, if you go to different restaurants, or basically anything that has anything to do with like slightly luxurious type of living, it has gone up significantly in price. And I remember I used to live in London as well, and it was very expensive back then, but it's even more so expensive than compared to like 10 years ago. And I don't know why nobody actually sees that in their CPI. And basically, you do see so much massive inflation happening in all sectors: education, even restaurants or hotels or whatever they may be. I mean, they've definitely gone up in price. So I don't know why the inflation conversation hasn't been really going on inside the government. I mean, because you do really see it everywhere.
Well, I mean, probably inside the government it happened, but the agreement is to not talk about it too much because people will start to worry and behave accordingly. So yeah, but I mean, it definitely makes sense for restaurants to increase their prices, especially here in London. They've lost so much business over the last year, so they basically have to make up for that. Um, so yeah, I definitely think we're going to have to pay more when we can go to the pub or the restaurant again.
Mm, yeah, I mean, in Singapore where I live right now, the lockdown period wasn't as long as most developed countries out there, but the amount of high-end restaurants that we now see in Singapore is incredible. And there are massive waiting lists that goes up to like plus 6 months, 9 months until you get a table. And those places charge anywhere, and everything's like omakase style now, all shipping in ingredients from very exotic places around the world, in Japan and etc. And if you look at the base food that most people eat are the hawker centers, which are like the food stalls, and they're pretty kept in kind of in line with CPI, but everything else is just gone bananas basically. So there's a huge disparity in that as well, and that has to also be included in the CPI in my view. But from that government, corporate standpoint, I do understand. Yes, there is definitely inflation happening in the currency, whether or not the government acknowledges or actually registers that. But it does make sense to put in some kind of inflation hedged asset for sure.
Yeah. And Bitcoin seems to be the millennial choice. And I think millennials are running a lot of companies, so it makes sense.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, I guess Michael Saylor from MicroStrategy is not really a millennial. He's probably more of a Gen X or something, and Elon Musk probably is Gen X as well. But they definitely do understand what's really happening in this economy, and they're taking action with their cash reserves, and I guess they have a better rep with their shareholders to enable to pass those judgments through. But if you look at really traditional companies, you said Mitsubishi Fuso. I mean, I would doubt any of the shareholders there or even the management there would take a bold decision to say, let's put some cash reserves into Bitcoin, right?
No, they would probably stay with the traditional gold or some government bonds or something like that. Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, for example, also I think it makes a lot of sense for organizations like Square or PayPal to get into it. Because first and foremost, I mean, both of them, they are somewhat competitors. So I think when one of them moves, the other one will make a move as well. Um, and then I think there's more people that are crypto curious that want to or are interested in getting into it, but they don't know how and they're not yet ready to dive into signing up for an exchange. So I think that's really where PayPal can capture those people. And also, for example, Revolut, people can buy Bitcoin on Revolut. I mean, you can't do anything with it except for watch it. You can't transact your Bitcoin out of the Revolut system, but it's also one way, for example, for people that are interested but not yet ready to do self custody, for example, to get into it. So
Right. But but I guess the how PayPal, Square, Revolut, any of these guys are traditionally payment solution companies, and they're getting into the crypto space, meaning that they probably do see some use cases of using cryptocurrencies for payments, and that probably goes back to like where Bitcoin.com originally started, is let's use this for crypto payments. I mean, do you find that alliance happening? Alliance meaning not a business alliance, but like the you kind of revert to the actual use cases of crypto.
yeah, definitely. And I think also all these developments around central bank digital currencies, they do acknowledge that maybe there's a better way of doing money than we are having at the moment. And if that is based on a blockchain like the one for Bitcoin, or if it's maybe another one like Ripple, which is used a lot between banks, for example, yeah, I definitely see that making a lot of sense and happening in the future. And if PayPal, which is really one of the leading payment solution, thinks that digital currencies have a future, then I'm pretty sure they do. And if that's in the form of Bitcoin, if that's Bitcoin Cash or maybe something totally different, I don't know. But yeah, I think digital currencies are here to stay. And I mean, we also, for example, if we think about the financial, well, excluded people who are not part of the financial system, most of them do have a cell phone. So by having these digital currencies, we could also make it easier for those to access the financial system or hold some digital currency. So I think that's really the way forward. I don't think in 50 years we're still going to be using cash.
Yeah, that's for sure. And but when you talk about these unbanked or underserved, people in the population where they don't have access to bank accounts, because of the physical locations, they don't have ATMs and all these things around where they live. So basically, there is a use case where yes, they have a smartphone, they can have access to a cryptocurrency or maybe a central bank digital currency, which is a government money, but just backed by a blockchain that can governments, I guess, they can wire money directly into their wallets instead of going through different channels to get their money. But in terms of like after that, so this is always another issue, is like what are they gonna do after that, right? Because one thing is like it doesn't really create a job for them, right? So they're still going to be doing agriculture, maybe they have a mom and pop shop, whatever there it is, but it doesn't really help them like grow their business in that sense. Or maybe it does. I mean, maybe you have a different view, but I think that there needs to be services on top of that they can earn more money with what they have. So maybe decentralized finance in that sense could be one of those solutions. I've talked to many payment solution companies that are in Southeast Asia are wanting to add DeFi solutions on top of their payment app so that people can actually earn some crypto yields on their holdings. But I still think DeFi is way too complicated for people to understand. Now, obviously, the interface, even the company names, just kind of like really ridiculous names like, I can't even. It doesn't. Nothing comes to mind exactly right now. But like, these all these sushi swaps and kimchi swaps or whatever they are. They have just the name gets even stupider and stupider every time. But I think that the important part about these decentralized finance solutions is that yes, there is a way for you to earn money even holding crypto. So how do you make it accessible or even comprehensible for those people to use those services, right? And right now, I still think it's just stuck in this world where people are really excited about crypto and the just kind of living inside of that. But I still think it needs several more steps to be able to even for our parents' generations to even look at it and say, hey, this makes sense, or I could use this by myself. Right now, it's just way too complicated for any general adoption.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think definitely the user experience will have to be improved. And yeah, I mean, these yield farming at the moment is really for traders mostly. It doesn't have much of a bigger purpose for now, but who knows? Maybe at some point we could have like a microcredit platform, and then these people working in agriculture could actually access those and maybe buy better machines and produce better coffee or whatever it is they do. Um, yeah, that could be the future. We will see.
Right. And then just going to what you're doing at the moment with Bitcoin.com exchange. So you said that Bitcoin.com is primarily providing wallet services or crypto wallet services for retail users. And I guess the exchange is just one part of that where when people, want to onboard with their government money onto the wallet and get a hold of crypto, that's where the exchange comes into play.
Yeah, exactly. We have several payment providers so people can buy with different fiat currencies, or Apple Pay, Google Pay, whatever they use. And then, of course, it's also for traders so they can trade whichever currency they wish to trade, which might not be available in the Bitcoin.com wallet. So, yeah.
Right. And so going forward, I mean, it's anybody's guess where this crypto market is going. But what keeps you like really excited to wake up in the morning and feel like you're part of something new, part of something revolutionary that can really change the world? I mean, what keeps you really going?
I think one of the things is that I have a platform to actually educate other people about finance while educating myself because I'm also a linguist studied. So I don't have all the answers, but I'm learning every day. And I think just sharing these things with other people so they can make of it, and maybe even use the knowledge to do something better in the future with their money, even if it's just putting it into, like in the UK, into an ISA and saving some tax. Even that's already an accomplishment in my eyes in comparison to just leaving it in your bank account. And then, of course, with cryptocurrencies, I think if we really manage to include more people financially that didn't have access yet, that's definitely something I'm excited about. And I hope it happens sooner than later. Because I think financial inclusion is also even one of the UN sustainability goals. So,
Yeah, that's for sure. And that's kind of how I really got into crypto as well. Not only because I thought, there's a great use case for people, let's say in like, like Argentina, Venezuela, where people are experiencing hyperinflation and they need to store wealth in some other currency rather than obviously their own currency, but even in US dollars because they can get confiscated as well. And, obviously they're not going to put it under their beds, mattress. They have to put it into their banks. But then, when the countries lose the cash reserves for US dollars, they just pick it out of the banks, right? So, but Bitcoin is not really a physical material. It's you can't confiscate it. So it's a great tool for those people to store wealth. And then on top of that, and for me, there's a use case for serving the underbanked and underserved as well. So, I really hope that this industry can really reach out to that kind of people in that society, not just within the kind of crypto world or the developed world, and just kind of see that flourish a lot more. But before I kind of wrap this up, I mean, is there something that you really want to share with us as a parting message? Because this is something that I love to have as a topic over and over again, especially because crypto is back in the limelight again, and you obviously seem to have a mission in this space. So yeah, I'd love to hear something that you can all of us can take away from this conversation.
yeah, I think it's important to do your own research, and I think that everybody's going to tell you that, but to not just rely on one source, no matter what. Like, as we've talked about inflation, for example, even though all these investment managers are worried, the government says it's not really happening, but I mean, they make the data. So obviously, there is a bit of a disconnect. So I think it's really important to be open to other opinions, to use several sources, and when somebody's really interested in getting into investing, to really know what you're doing. And yeah, I mean, personally, when I trade, I also just basically I have my portion of gamble money, which I can put into cryptocurrency where I think, okay, they might be doing well or maybe not, but if I lose it all, it's fine because this was my gamble money. So I think really having this kind of mindset to where you invest when you're not really sure about something, just your gamble money, which you can afford to lose, and whereas you should be a bit more careful with, let's say, retirement savings. Um, yeah. So to just be aware of what you do with your money and to always look out for more information, to do your research carefully and not rely on just one single source.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, right now the world is full of misinformation anyway, so you really have to do your work to understand. And unfortunately for our education, and there hasn't been any education around investing or finance for that matter. So this is something that we really have to take responsibility in learning. And Bitcoin always was about kind of self-education anyway, right? Or self responsibility, because you have to hold the private keys yourself. If you don't hold the private keys, it's not your fund. So just learning about taking responsibility about everything that you have, your knowledge, your wealth, everything is now you can't really rely on anybody else but just you. So
Yeah. But I think also just the thrill of doing your first Bitcoin transaction, I think that's already worth it because you're so anxious that you typed something wrong and it's not gonna arrive. And I think that doesn't never really wear off. So I still feel that way. Sometimes when I send crypto, I'm like, is this gonna arrive? Did I type something wrong? Even though you can copy paste it, but you're still, yeah. So that's just exciting every time.
so long. Yeah. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you very much for your time, and hope to keep connecting, and have a conversation after this.
Definitely. Have a nice evening. Thank you as well.
Hi, this is your host Takatoshi Shibayama. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. Now, if you enjoyed or disliked this show, please let me know by writing in the comment section. The only way I can improve or add value to you is through your voices. If there are any topics that you would like me to pick up, please also let me know in the comments. I'd love to start chatting with you all. And if you would like to continue watching the show, please subscribe. Thank you.